CCU Orlando, Natural Awakenings Magazine, and Unity of Nashville present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 59, The Power of Real Forgiveness. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice and I'm the host. And I'm here in 818 Studios with my producer.
Hey, my name is Dave Croft. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Authentic Spiritual Journey, episode 59. And I tell you what, we are having a great year so far.
Yeah, tell them the stats, buddy.
We are 25,000 downloads. We've crossed into 25,000 downloads and several countries, of which we will give a shout out to momentarily.
We are at show 59, and the title of today's show is The Power of Real Forgiveness. It's something I love to talk about, and no matter where you may be from, what I love about all of our topics, they are on universal spiritual principles that apply to your life no matter where you are from, no matter how old you are, no matter what your orientation is, what color, what your race is, none of that matters. What matters is that we're all in this together. We're both perfectly human and perfectly divine. And so the power of real forgiveness can really make a difference in your life. So this is exciting to me. So who are we shouting out to
We're
today?
giving a shout out to our listeners in Finland.
Oh,
yeah, we've got several of the Nordic countries who we will be giving a shout out to over the next few episodes. But Finland.
Finland.
It's
Finland.
Like Maryland. It's not Maryland,
exactly.
or it's not.
No,
but it is
exactly.
Spider-Man, not Spider-Man.
That is true. So if you're listening from Finland, thank you so much. Please, if you know anyone in your country who is listening, please share with them, get together, have spiritual conversations. The world changes by by people with a lot of intention doing their spiritual work. So please invite your friends to listen with you. And again, it means so much to us when you take the time to listen and to share with your friends, because it is moving our message out worldwide.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting, messages in either through the website or even, folks at church coming up. And it's really, really good to hear that what we're doing, in our little studio once a week is reaching and resonating with you guys. So thank you so much.
Yes. And if there's ever any topics that you would like us to either expand on, or maybe you haven't heard us talk about it and you're like, I've heard you say something about that, I'd like to know more, we're always open to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Head over to experienceofthesoul.com/contact and let us know any show topics.
And today is a topic that actually gets requested of me very often. Over the years, I've studied many things, but there's a few I've gone really in depth with, and I'm going to tell you what they are. One is the study of abundance and prosperity on every level. 2 is the power of forgiveness. 3 is meditation, and 4 is soul evolution. And believe it or not, all those are very related. And so the show as a whole is really about, it's a couple friends hanging out, having spiritual conversations about these spiritual principles. These are universal spiritual principles. Again, they're all related, and what we try to do each show is pick one major principle to help you practice in your life. And ultimately, it's about reawakening consciousness to love, acceptance, and peace. I have really discovered that is my mission. I have this high vision of, igniting soul evolution, and I love that, and I'm going to keep that. That's because that keeps me moving forward and my projects moving forward. But very simply, the show is about reawakening consciousness to love, acceptance, and peace, and forgiveness is very, very critical to making that happen in our individual lives and then therefore in the world.
Yeah, one of there are definitely, I'm sure we'll get into this today. There are definitely some things that I actively hold, and I know I do. I hold unforgiveness in my heart that I need to release, and I'm working on it. But I think you said it, like, forgiveness isn't for the other person.
Exactly.
It's for you. Your forgiveness work isn't about absolving them of their wrongs.
Yes, right.
It's about you releasing that energy so that they're no longer occupying a part of your spirit, a part of your soul, and just kind of latching on and releasing that. And so it's one of those things that my heart knows, but my head, and so yeah, I'm sure we'll get into some of that today.
I'm glad you're saying all that, Dave. That's a great introduction just to the idea. When some people hear the word forgiveness, I think there are a lot of misunderstandings because of the way forgiveness has been taught through the years, and certainly in religion. And I'll be honest, I think the way most churches that I grew up in anyway, taught forgiveness is very irresponsible. Because very often, what I learned was, like for instance, let's start here. What I heard growing up, and maybe you did too, Dave, was forgive and forget. Did you hear that?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So forgive and forget. Now, that sounds like a good idea because it's like, okay, forgive and forget means, okay, everything's cool between us, all is well, and we can move forward again. But that can be very dangerous given certain situations. And if the hurt was real, you're forgetting will happen, maybe, but probably over time and probably after a lot of soul work.
Well, that's advice you give to two siblings squabbling over sharing a toy.
Exactly.
He smacked me. Okay, it's all good. There will be consequences to that, but forgive and forget. That's the kind of that's what you tell toddlers.
Exactly. It is a very childish way of dealing with what is in fact a deep spiritual practice. It's a good description of it. Yeah, that's what you say to people fighting over a toy. This is what you say. In other words, let it go. What that really means, that idea of forgiveness really means let it go. And even in my family, my son and I have a phrase, that basically is equal to forgiveness. If we've been a little off track, one of us will say, "Are we good?" Yeah, and I'll go total. Or he'll say totally, and then total forgiveness. I want to take responsibility. Yes. And I have that, I would say too, with my sisters. It's a really important thing to be able to do.
Yeah,
really
absolutely. It's something that me and Shannon, we do. If we know that we've really messed up, then we will actually, instead of just saying, hey, whatevs, water under the bridge, we will actually say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I've messed up. Will you forgive me? And that goes a long way, because if you're on the receiving end of that ask,
oh yeah,
it's really hard. It's hard if I'm angry or if I've been wronged or whatever, and somebody asks me authentically and vulnerably, I messed up. Will you forgive me? It's really hard to carry. That just thaws, for me at least. When Shannon asks that, it thaws whatever hard, cold thing, and it just kind of diffuses the whole situation.
Yes.
Now, that's in a marriage that can work. I'm not sure if that can work if it's abuse or anything like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I want to get to that. I want to get to the deeper issues, because I think there are different levels of hurt and therefore different levels of forgiveness. But before we get any further, what I want to talk about is the word itself, forgive. So if you split the word, and I there was one of my teachers who did this years ago that helped me, and her name is Reverend Dr. Catherine Ponder. She still has a ministry in Palm Desert, California. She's got to be, I don't know, close to 100 by now.
Oh, wow.
But one of her teachings is, she first talked about the word. She said, if you look at forgiveness, it says to give for. What are you giving for? So it's like if you just take the word and break it down, for and give. Okay, what am I giving? What am I giving for? And I sat with that, to give for. So you are ultimately, when you forgive, you are giving away from your body the hurt and the pain and receiving unconditional love. Now, the way most of us were taught about forgiveness means I'm condoning someone else's hurt. In other words, if I say I forgive you, historically that has meant, even if you hurt me, and I'll go to the abuse, even if you abuse me, I forgive you. Now, I do believe forgiveness eventually needs to find its way in your heart, even if you have been abused. but I also believe it is such a process, and that if you're thinking it's condoning bad behavior, it's going to be very, very hard for you to do.
And that's where the forgive and forget gets super toxic
It does.
because then you go, well, I can't forgive and let alone forget it. So
No.
I must be broken and then it's on
Right,
me
right.
and I'm
It's
a
on
terrible
me.
person.
Exactly. So forgiveness, the way I teach it, is ultimately about, it's ultimately about releasing negative energy that you're holding about a certain situation. So forgiveness is the releasing of negative energy about a person or situation. It can be, like Dave and I had mentioned, it could be a very simple situation. It could also be a very profoundly disturbing situation. It's really impacted your life. Either way, from from the person that pulls out in traffic to the person that, has hurt you deeply, maybe in your formative years, those wounds, tend to carry a lot of weight in your soul, in your psyche. So those have to be dealt with in a lot deeper way. So when we say forgiveness, we're talking about us as individuals releasing negative energy. I'm purposely repeating this because this is very unusual for talking about forgiveness.
Yep.
Releasing negative energy that I'm holding on to, because if I'm holding on to the energy, guess who it's impacting? Not the person who
That's
hurt
right.
me.
That's right.
It does not impact the person who hurt me when I'm holding on to it. When I release it, then energy has to find a place to go. Energy is released. So if I'm not holding it, that energy's got to find somewhere else to go. I don't want it in my mind, in my body, in my soul, because the longer we hold on to unforgiveness, which, friends, is betrayal, is anger, is resentment, then that begins to have not only physical impacts, but impacts of self-worth, impacts of health. If you hold on to a lot of negativity, friends, it manifests in all kinds of ways. And especially if you are actively sending negative energy outward, that is really problematic.
Yeah, because
It comes
bad
right back.
things keep happening,
Yeah,
and
I wonder why.
Yeah, and not to go
Exactly.
into kind of victim blaming or anything like that, but it's just what you put out there, it comes back, it reflects back on you.
Right. Well, and that's what we talked about our last show about your karmic play. And that's why I wanted to follow this up, because forgiveness is one of those things that really begins to heal karmic patterns. So forgiveness, first of all, is releasing negative energy. And also forgiveness is not a one-time thing. It's very often a process. And I can give you processes, and we will put some in the show notes. But ultimately, forgiveness will happen as you hold the intention. So if I were in Sunday, I would say, write this down. Hold the intention. In other words, holding the intention of forgiveness means I'm going to be open to the idea that I can find love for myself in this situation. So if we're holding on to unforgiveness, very often, even though we think we're blaming the other person, what we're actually doing by holding on to the unforgiveness is blaming ourselves. It's a weird thing, but after doing so much work over so many years, what I know is if I'm holding on to unforgiveness, I'm actually blaming myself in part in the situation, because I'm holding all this negative energy, and rather than releasing it, I'm hurting myself. So rather than experiencing the hurt and then releasing it, what I'm doing is hurting myself over and over and over again. So, and especially in those deepest, deepest wounds. And friends, we all have them. We've all had to move through things. Some of us are more horrific than others, but we have all had it. We've all had things happen. Forgiveness is so powerful in moving the negative energy out so that you can then find your own life, your own power, your own love within your very own being. And moving that energy out is a very important part of healing. Again, mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and soul. When you think about it, holding on to resentments is so constricting. It's very limiting. It's constricting. Yes, it causes negative energy, but not only negative. It's like poison. It's like poison for you because you're saying someone did me wrong. Someone needs to pay.
Well, and doesn't it kind of also reflect like the last vestige of feeling like you have any power in a situation?
Oh, yes.
It's like if I can hold this unforgiveness, right? Then I still control that. Even though
Yes.
it kind of controls you, you're still like,
Yes.
this person wronged me, and I'm not going to forgive them. So at least I am in control of that.
Yes.
On some level.
Yes, I mean unforgiveness is a false sense of control, and until your healing, this is important. Until your healing is bigger than your wound, you will not be able to forgive. In other words, if you haven't dealt with what caused the wound, your piece of it, what happened, then you will hold on to unforgiveness until you get to the point of healing. In other words, your healing gets bigger than the wound, and then forgiveness happens. You don't have to force forgiveness. It's like, okay, I want to forgive. Well, that's wonderful. But if
Just keep telling yourself that.
Yeah, but if you force forgiveness, it's not going to be real, and you're going to have to do it again. So I said first, hold the intention. Well, we kind of hold it with an open hand, not I have to, but this is where the spiritual work. So when I talk about spiritual work and soul work, this is what it is. If I'm pausing every morning for my reflection time, as we've talked about so much, doing my journaling about how I feel, doing my work, then I am going to be dialing into the emotional nature of myself. And I'm going to be asking myself, man, where am I with this situation? Because if something's really up for me, it means it's up to be looked at and to forgive. And that's a question people often ask. How do I know if it's time to forgive? I say, well, what's in your face right now? What's, what is really bothering you? What really drives you crazy? What keeps coming up in your consciousness? And you go, oh, I can't believe that happened. And you want to tell all your friends about it. Chances are that's the place you need to look. So when we're being mindful in our morning practice or our evening practice, as we discussed, some people are night people, if you're in your evening or morning practice, whenever your spiritual practice is, you want to be conscious of what is alive in you, what is working in you. And so if there's a difficult situation, and there's actually a situation I'm working with right now, and my prayer work around that is, Spirit, let me know when it's time to forgive. Spirit, let me know when I can move into forgiveness. I'm willing, but it's not quite there yet. There's work that needs to be done. So holding the intention and then taking that intention into your spiritual work is very important. As you do that, you will be guided as to next steps for how to deal with it. Some situations need one-to-one communication with the person who hurt you. In other situations, that could be physically harmful, and you wouldn't want to do that.
Right.
Other times, dealing with a tough situation involves writing the person a letter. Sometimes it involves writing a letter you never send. But you're writing it to their soul. So I'll give you a few of those how-tos at the end of the show. I want you to stay with us because I don't want to stop here. I think we need to go a little further with the topic of forgiveness. But I will give you some how-tos at the end of the show. So holding the vision, not holding the vision. Sorry, let me say that a better way. Holding the I'm sorry.
I think it's the intention.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Holding the intention. Need more coffee. Holding the intention of forgiveness. And then taking that intention into your time of spiritual work. And as I'm saying these two things, it assumes you're serious about your spiritual growth, number one. It assumes you care deeply about the level of consciousness that you have in your soul. It assumes that daily you are working on yourself and your soul. So if you are not doing that work, this show is going to be difficult for you to put into practice. So I really want to encourage you, as I'm saying this, about holding the intention and taking it into your spiritual work, for you to really contemplate how you are working this. Because again, forgiveness is the great karmic cleanser. Forgiveness heals old patterns and old wounds and moves you forward in spiritual consciousness in a way nothing else does. I mean, I love meditation, but in meditation, yes, it raises my consciousness, but I can be meditating and still be in unforgiveness. Right, ultimately, because meditation, yes, I'm connecting, but all of the different aspects of the psyche may not be engaged in the meditation. So I want to really encourage you to think deeply about the words I'm saying about forgiveness, because of the tremendous, tremendous impact it makes in your life. Forgiveness, the power of real forgiveness moves your soul forward. So with this idea, we'll go to a break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little more and delve a little more deeply and give you some how-tos on how to put this into practice in your life.
We'll return to the program in just a few minutes, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, CCU Orlando, who has helped make this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey possible. CCU Orlando is a welcoming community dedicated to transforming lives, celebrating diversity, and supporting soul growth. CCU Orlando is located at 771 Holden Avenue in Orlando, Florida, with Sunday services at 9 and 11 a.m. You can stream services live online as well as learn more at christchurchunity.net. We'd also like to thank Natural Awakenings Magazine of Central Florida, Greater Orlando. Each month, Natural Awakenings magazines across the country take a practical look at the latest natural approaches to nutrition, fitness, creative expression, personal growth, and sustainable living. Natural Awakenings magazine is a free publication and is available in selected stores, health and education centers, healing centers, public libraries, and wherever free publications are located. You could learn more, including advertising opportunities for your business, by calling 407-628-0705. And finally, we'd like to extend our special thanks to Unity of Nashville, a sister ministry of CCU Orlando. If you're searching for a like-minded church community and a personal connection that supports your heart and mind in the Central Tennessee area, then join Unity of Nashville at 10 a.m. every Sunday morning at 5125 Franklin Pike. For more information, head over to unityofnashville.org. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
So if you're holding the intention of forgiveness, if you are working in your spiritual work and you understand, what forgiveness is, the release of negative energy, I think the next steps are beginning to put forgiveness into practice on a very regular basis. The way, again, forgiveness has been taught historically in my life is somebody gives a message on it, you forgive somebody, and then you don't think about it again until the next message 3 years later.
Right. And if you don't forgive them, then you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, right. You've done it wrong. So as I said, forgiveness is a process. First and foremost, I think to know that not only is that okay, that's just how it works. There are moments of huge grace where forgiveness comes in and you can release negativity about a situation, and we give thanks for that. But in general, because forgiveness is tied to emotional states, is tied to your you're growing up, what's the word I'm like, your developmental stages in life as you grow up. If you are 5 years old or 10 years old and you experience abuse, that has a tremendous negative impact on the psyche and even wounds the soul.
Yeah, it reminds me of kind of a broken bone. I mean, when you think about, the hurt that goes along with needing to forgive is directly proportional to the trust that was broken that caused the hurt to begin with.
Yes.
So the more you trusted somebody, whether it was family, friends, or whatever, the more you trusted them, then when that goes sideways, then the greater that hurt is.
Yes,
Which
and
is why you can just let somebody that cut you off in traffic, let him go. I forgive you, be well, whatever. But if a family member or a boss or something like that you've really invested in, when that goes sideways, so it feels like a broken bone, like it's the trust is broken, and so the first thing you have to do is realize, hey, my arm is broken, and then you set it right, which is can be painful, but that's the start of the process. You set it on the path to healing with a cast, and then I am imagining, I've actually never broken a bone, but the cast, and it gets healed, and it heals, and you're not gonna say I've forgiven and it's healed. You're not gonna set a broken bone without a cast and then go play baseball again. You need to let it heal.
Time to heal.
And then, every now and then, maybe, it's healed, your cast is off, but it might get sore when it rains or something. I don't know.
Well,
is that making any sense at all?
It does. And I actually talked to a doctor friend of mine a couple of years ago now, and she listens to the show. Hello, my friend. And she had said that very often in the break, you are actually stronger because of how it heals. So the good news is, hey, it can make us stronger. So it's a very, very good point. So forgiveness being a process is not a negative thing. And for me, it's a way of life. It's a way of life. And I want to talk a little bit about what I mean when I say forgiveness is a way of life. It doesn't mean I walk around going, everything's cool, man, and, I forgive everybody all the time. But what it means is that I spend time on a regular basis, and my favorite time to do forgiveness work is at night, because I like to kind of clean the slate before going to sleep. I don't want to take the hurts, the disappointments, the negativities of the day, into my sleep and dream time, and then therefore waking up the next day with it. So when I do nightly forgiveness work, how it looks is that I'm, as I'm lying in bed, I will often ask, is there anyone I put outside my heart today? And I want to give Edwene credit for that. Edwene Gaines credit for that. She was the first one I heard say that, and I thought, that's a great way to remember to, these little pieces that are these unforgiveness pieces that are hanging out there from the day that honestly, they're not worth holding on to, friends. Somebody pulls out in front of you, somebody, sends a dumb email, somebody says something to you they really don't.
Or a stranger on the internet disagrees with you on a Facebook post. Right.
Yeah, it's like, really? So it's to make it's a quick mental inventory. It just takes 2 or 3 minutes probably. And the phrase I use is so simple. It's just, I will say, I forgive you totally and completely. I forgive you totally and completely. And sometimes I say it several times until I feel like I've changed my consciousness. And then I do a little short visualization where I imagine the situation depending on the impact. Sometimes just saying, I forgive you totally and completely, and I send love to that situation. So it's like it just releases. I can feel it. For me, I feel it almost like a release from my heart chakra, right? It's just like it just releases. So if it's a little bit deeper one, let's say there's somebody I've been having a difficulty communicating with or something, and it's happened over time, then I will, say the same thing. I forgive you totally and completely. And then the meditation that goes with it is I will just imagine light, God light, God love, from the higher consciousness. And then I just imagine separating myself from that person, and I imagine them floating into the light. And as they're floating up, I just say, I forgive you, totally and completely. And then I imagine this golden ball of God light between me and this person. And if they ever try to come back into my energy and my consciousness, rather than coming to me, they'll go to that big golden ball of light. So that golden ball of light serves as a protection between me and this energy. If it's a bigger energy, something I feel like I'm really working with, I do the same work, and then I ask Archangel Michael and all my angels and spirit guides to surround me. And I will tell you, I have physically felt that this happened in this is a couple months ago. I literally felt like I was being held by all the angels. It was a really profound spiritual experience, and I just knew there was a lot of spiritual support there for me. I'm saying all of this to say that if you go to bed every night with intending good, with intending, as we said, remember, holding that intention of forgiveness, as we hold it in our spiritual work, and then at night we are sending that energy out, ready to be in that love of God, then friends, forgiveness comes. And you don't have to work real hard on those situations that are more surfacey, as we were saying, something little that happens. Now, on the bigger issues, I feel like I should go, dun, dun, dun. There are a lot of big issues, and I'm not making fun of this, friends. I laugh at myself because spiritual work has to be fun because it's also so difficult. And I have been through some very difficult situations in life, and I have found myself in the process of forgiveness, and I have found that each time I forgive, especially those larger issues that really impacted me negatively in my formative and developmental years, that that I move into more freedom and more joy and more love. And that's what I want. That's what I want. That's what matters to me most. As I said that, I'm thinking back to a couple of shows ago when we had Eli Jackson Bear on, and he said, the first question I ask people is, what do you want? If you want to be right, if you want to hold on to hurt, if you want to be the victim, then hold on to unforgiveness. If you want to be free, forgive. It's that simple. All the teachings that I have, forgiveness is number one. Forgiveness is number one as a key to freedom. Because even if somebody's still sending you negative energy or saying things to you or about you, it can't have power over you as long as you are willing to forgive and you protect yourself energetically. And remember that show several shows ago about energetic boundaries? It comes into play as we do forgiveness work.
Question. One of the things that I struggle with, where I have this little rock hard nugget of unforgiveness that I've been chipping away at for 7 years, if I'm being honest.
Yes.
It was a hurt that was actually done to Shannon. And
yes.
so
Yes, like in protection of her.
Correct. I went like, I have like alpha male, this is what we call between me and Shannon. And she can go alpha female. Anytime any one of us gets hurt, the other one goes like, alpha. And so that's where it's like, if you hurt me, cool. It will slough off of me pretty.
I mean, ultimately not cool, but I know what you mean.
But yeah,
but you can deal with it.
Exactly. But seeing how it wrecked Shannon, that's what I'm having a hard time. Just yeah. That's why it's calcified.
Yeah. Well, I think to ask yourself, if I were working this issue, so let me just do it that way. If I were working this issue, I might ask myself, what am I getting from the unforgiveness? Like, why do I not want to forgive? And that's a journaling question. I often journal.
My gut tells me it's because by forgiving him, it lets him off the hook, which I know in my heart is not right, but my head doesn't get it. Yeah. It lets him off the hook.
Right. It actually, but in actuality, I'm going to say it this way. It lets you off the hook.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Okay. Keep working it. Well, and I think keep working it. As I said, forgiveness is a process. There may be something in you, there may be something you need to get for you before you're willing to forgive. Yeah. That's okay. I think the key for me in my practice is, am I willing to forgive? If I'm not willing, that's really on me. If I'm not willing at some point to move towards forgiveness, that's my stuff. That's my karmic stuff I'm creating. And ultimately what you're doing, and this is a quote from Eric Butterworth. He said, when you don't forgive, it's like you and the person that hurt you or the ones you love, you're connected to them by a steel beam. Now that beam is invisible, but the longer you hold on forgiveness, the longer you're connected.
And you want to know what's even more messed up is I can look at the direct line. It has to do with why we left Memphis and everything. If anybody wants to know,
I figured.
We don't have to dig all into that, but it's why we left Memphis and we
Right.
came to Orlando. And I look at all of these amazing things that have happened since moving to Orlando. And there's this little part of me, which is completely irrational, and I understand that, but there's a little part of me that thinks he does not get credit for that. You know what I'm saying? Because, and it had to do with like spiritual hurt and church hurt and that kind of thing. And so he doesn't get to sit back and say, look how successful, God works in mysterious ways. And he doesn't get to say that,
Okay, right. All right. I'm so glad you said that because this is how we all think. This is so important. So he doesn't get anything, actually, because when you purposely hurt someone, what you are creating for yourself is negative karma. But what you did is you used it as a sole opportunity to change and grow. So that's what you did with it. That has nothing to do with him. But ultimately, did his soul serve yours? I mean, yeah, but for a really bad reason.
I don't want him to have that.
No, but
there's
but that's not about. But there's nothing like, quote, good. So remember, though, there's this higher good, okay,
Right.
that we can't see because we live in the world of opposites. He did this and she did that. I'm never going to be grateful. I was abused as a child. But what I did with that and how I chose to deal with that is on me. His karma, and by the way, he's dead. So he's already had his issues. He's already dealing with his. And I say, karma is going to get you. So
is a bee.
Yep. I didn't want to say that on the air. A lot of kids listen to the show. So karma's difficult. So that was a soul opportunity for you guys, and you took it. That's it. Plain and simple. So ultimately, he served your soul, yes. And we never know why these things happen on the third dimensional level, obviously. So there's part of forgiveness too, and you're speaking of it now, is the ability to trust that something higher is going on. So I don't know why any child, no child should be abused. No child should be. I'm never going to call that good in the spiritual sense.
Right.
Never. But did my soul grow and expand as a result of my healing? Yes. But I believe I could have expanded and healed quicker and easier without that.
How do you?
So I don't believe that this had to happen. It happened because my soul wanted to have an experience of healing, and so it did. But I'm not going to call that divine order. I'm not going to spiritualize that. I think that my soul went through what it did because it was what my soul needed to grow and expand, period. So, but I'm never going to call abuse good. I'm never going to call what somebody did to Shannon hurtful good. What I know is ultimately all these situations are choices for our soul to grow and expand. And forgiveness heals everything.
Yeah. One more observation, and I'll stop talking about myself.
Everybody learns.
How do you move past? Like, there's a part of me that's resentful that this person is in the book at all. You know what I mean? We talked about karmic play and how they are all characters, and there's a part of me that's super resentful that this guy is a character and will be, for the end of time, will be a character in that portion of the life of our story. And so it's all intertwined with the forgiveness stuff as well. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. I mean, we can't erase what's happened, but you can erase the karma of what happened, and that's through forgiveness. Yeah. So the best way to be clear is to forgive, not to hold on. Yeah. So the only way it remains in your psyche, and it's like it's in your spiritual DNA. As long as you hold on to it, you've got it. You've got it. The negativity is still with you.
So what you're telling me is I can't just keep stuffing it down. And,
I'm saying good luck trying.
And making myself busy and recording more shows and writing more music. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, right. We're not. Next time we talk about forgiveness, it will be a different conversation, or it should be. Yes, yes, because but you may not be ready to move towards forgiveness yet. I mean, you have to decide that unforgiveness is more painful, than forgiving. At some point, it's like, I can't hold on to this negativity anymore. When I was holding on to a lot of negativity, you said it's been 7 years. The family member that abused me when I was young, I held on to it for 20. And I was not ready before that. I was mad. I was hurt. I felt betrayed. I felt used. I felt, that made me different. I felt it slowed me down. I felt I was never going to make it. It was very, very intense. I was suicidal in high school. Suicidal, yes, but it was really depression. I wasn't really suicidal, but I thought maybe I was, and should I take something? So I thought about it.
So
I just thought about it.
What was it that
So I was going to this family reunion, and I didn't know he was going to be there. I was in my late 20s, and I had just done a lot of deep therapeutic and spiritual work on the very thing that happened. And I'm not going to give details. That's inappropriate and wouldn't be, it's not important. But when I got to the reunion, I was driving my mom, and we got there, and I said, and I saw him, and I said, he's here? Honey, don't let it ruin your time, she said. I said, ruin my time? He kind of ruined my life, actually. Are you out of your mind? Don't let it ruin your time. He's ruined the last 20 years. And me saying he's ruined the last 20 years, I said, that is it. No more. It was like me saying, because it's been over for 20 years, but it's still running my inner dialogue, my life, so many things. It was running, and it was so unconscious. When I said he's ruining my life, that was it. And so I looked for an opportunity to speak to him directly, which was dangerous. I would not recommend anybody else do that with the kind of violence he's capable of. But he was there with somebody, so I felt kind of like maybe he wouldn't be crazy, So I went and, boop, 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 knocked on the door, knock, knock, knock. And he comes to the door, and I said, I need to talk to you. Come out here, And he said, what is it? I said, come out here right now. And I was mad. I have never talked to a grown man in that way, nor did I enjoy that, but that had to happen. And I told him what happened, and I told him he knew what happened, and I told him he needed to apologize, and that he was going to, whether he wanted to or not. And I said, I'm done with you having any control of my life. Of course, he didn't know he had no idea the impact, right. I'm sure, but I knew it. And it was important for me to really share that for me, the impact it had. And I said, and no more. I am done. I was like, I started bawling, of course. I said, I am done with you having any power in my life ever again. It was like, no. The power, the God power that was in me to just say no, no, no to this kind of energy. Well, and the weirdest thing happened. In that moment, it was grace that flowed through me, and I said, it's over. I'm done with you. And he died a couple years later, but the forgiveness that flowed through me was tremendous. It was so powerful. And it I didn't know anything about Unity then. I had not had any teachers on forgiveness. And I just felt it like explode through my heart chakra. It just blew out years of hurt, of pain, of resentment. It was really, really miraculous. Thank you. It was really miraculous in how the forgiveness moved through me. And I did see him one other time that weekend. And he did cry, I will tell you. And he did ask for my forgiveness. And he did apologize. And anybody that has hurt me over my life, in my childhood, everyone I have confronted everyone. And that's just the way I needed to do it. Since those circumstances, and that was the first one, and I was in my, like I say, I was in my late 20s. I'm 50 now, so it's been about 25 years. There's been a couple little things that wanted to resurface, and when I journal them, they release again. So it's a lifelong process for me in that, and probably always will be. But the bulk of the work that I had done, those 20 years, even though I was resentful, even though I was angry, I didn't know I was willing to forgive, but what I had done is worked on healing myself. That abuse made me feel unworthy. It made me feel like I was always wrong. It made me feel like nobody cared. It made me feel like I wasn't loved. It made me feel gross. All these things that abuse does. So those, but in that moment, because I had worked on it so much, I'd worked on it therapeutically, I'd worked on it, with a spiritual counselor as well as a psychologist. Because I'd done so much work, when it was time, the forgiveness just flowed, and it was such a gift from God. Today I'm in that. I can just be in that feeling right now, and I should say too, after that interaction with that man, there was this river, and it was real special to my family where we were, because I was there for the reunion. And so afterwards, it was pretty powerful to go down and just rinse in the river. Just rinse all that, all the tears, all the yuck. And I thought, wow, this is from God. This is from God. So this is a deep second half, and we're not quite done.
Yeah.
So
It's all right. It's authentic.
I want to say more to you, friends, about how you can do forgiveness. But I want you, rather than me give you a lot of processes, I will give you some links in the show notes, because I want you to sit with that story a little bit. And I want you to use that story as an impetus for your own growth. And I want you to ask yourself, what am I holding on to that's been there for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years? I know many of us have held on to things for a lifetime, and we don't even know it. I want to encourage you to begin working on it in whatever way you're guided. So just remember holding that intention to forgive, doing your spiritual work, remembering that forgiveness is a process as you work through it. And then given the situation, see what you're guided to do. And remembering that at night, before you go to sleep at night, to really release anybody that you've held outside your heart during the day, all these little ones. Just release this, release, so that this true power of forgiveness can come forth in your life. I trust you to know what's yours to do, when and how to do it. And I will give you processes, but it just feels like we should end with that, because I want to encourage you to do your own work in your own soul so that you can experience God, freedom, and love in your very own life. So we thank you, dear friend. We bless you and are so grateful you join us. Please, again, share this journey with your friends, with your spiritual friends. Share the show so that you can talk about how you are putting into practice these one of the most important spiritual principles, the power of real forgiveness, making it real in your life.
Yeah, and be sure to check out our show notes. We'll have some links and some other information for you.
Thank you, friends.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey presented by CCU Orlando, Natural Awakenings Magazine, and Unity of Nashville. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is also made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons, Dove Borland, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, J.J. Hamilton, Arlene Meyer, Kathy and Terry, Marcia Mott, and Nora Miles. If you would like to support the channel as a patron on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. And if you enjoy this podcast, help spread the word by sharing it with your friends and leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, or the platform of your choice. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2019 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.